Happy Twintober, everyone! As you prepare to binge your favorite horror movies this Halloween, it's hard to ignore the ever-present trope of the final girl. Nearly every horror movie has a girl that somehow survives against the odds. This case of the Twin Files is about a teenager named Mary Vincent, who is a real-life final girl after she survived being kidnapped, assaulted, and having her arms chopped off. Mary Vincent was a vivacious 15-year-old from Las Vegas who was a competitive dancer that competed around the world. But as bright as her future was, she was a very troubled girl. Her parents were in the middle of a bitter divorce, and Mary started to rebel in the typical teenage fashion. She started wearing heavy makeup and skipping school, much to the objection of her strict parents. This culminated in Mary running away from home to Sausalito, California to be with her much older boyfriend. While she was with him, they slept out of his car until he was arrested for sexually assaulting a minor. For some unknown reason, the police did not contact Mary's parents, and she was now alone in an unfamiliar place. Despite this, she did not want to return home to deal with her parents' divorce, and so she decided to hitchhike to her grandmother's house in Los Angeles. That would turn out to be the worst mistake of her life. It was a hot summer day on September 29, 1978. Mary and two other girls waited on a roadside in Berkeley, California, hoping to catch a ride. It was common at the time for young people to hitchhike, and it didn't take long for a blue van to pull up to the trio. Behind the wheel was former Merchant Marine Lawrence Singleton. He was an average-looking older man in his 50s. The two girls that were with Mary must have felt something was off about the man, because when he said that he only had room for one, the girls declined and urged Mary to do the same. Singleton promised to take her to Interstate 5 in Los Angeles, which was roughly a 4-hour drive. Eager to get to her grandparents' home, she got into the van. Mary felt safe in this older man's company and fell asleep. However, when she woke up, she immediately noticed that something was wrong. They weren't headed for Interstate 5. They were going in the opposite direction. Mary was frightened. She grabbed a stick that was laying on the floor of the van and immediately demanded that they turn around. Singleton pretended that it was a mistake and told her, "I'm just an honest man that made an honest mistake." And to her surprise, he turned around. It was getting late, and the setting sun turned the sky a dusky orange. Singleton pulled over onto a deserted road off the freeway that led into a canyon. Saying he had to relieve himself, he got out of the van. Mary decided to take the opportunity to use the bathroom on the side of the road. Once she was done, she tied her shoes. Distracted, Singleton snuck up behind her and bashed her head with a hammer. He hit her again, and as the pain exploded in her head, Singleton grabbed the helpless girl and tossed her into the van like she was a rag doll. He told her, "Don't scream or I will kill you." Mary was in agonizing pain, disoriented, and couldn't even fight back as he tied her arms behind her back and then brutally assaulted her. Once Singleton was done, he left Mary's crumpled body on the floor of the back of his van. He then climbed into the driver's seat of the van while naked and drove into the canyon. After driving a few miles, he made another stop and went to the back of the van to a terrified Mary. Singleton leaned down and cut off the ropes of her wrists and told her if she obeyed, he would let her go. He then gave her a cup of liquor and said if she didn't drink, he would kill her. Mary downed the burning liquor and it made her head spin. She was assaulted for a second time, and the mixture of liquor, pain, and shock made her pass out. When she woke up, Singleton told her to get out of the van and lay down on the edge of the road. Mary, praying that this nightmare would end, did what she was told. As she laid on the ground, Singleton went back to the van and returned with a hatchet. He walked to her and kneeling down, he screamed in her face, "You want to be free? I'll set you free." With 3 swings of his hatchet, he hacked off Mary's left arm at the elbow. Then he cut off her right arm. Her screams echoed into the empty night as Singleton shoved her down in an embankment and crammed her into a concrete pipe. But as Singleton left her for dead, Mary was determined to live. With no arms and bleeding profusely, Mary pushed her stumps into the dirt, trying to pack it down enough so she wouldn't bleed out. She managed to crawl her way out of the pipe and out of the embankment. She walked 3 miles naked, covered in blood and dirt. She had to walk holding her arms up to keep her muscles from slipping out and to stem the flow of blood. She was rescued the following morning when a couple missed their exit and ended up going down that same canyon road. To their absolute horror, they saw the badly injured Mary. The couple immediately pulled over and rushed her to the hospital. Mary survived. She gave such a detailed description of her attacker that when the police sketch was shown on the news, Lauren Singleton's neighbor immediately identified him. We don't know what her recovery process was like, but it's easy to imagine that it was very difficult and painful as she learned to use prosthetic arms. 6 months later, Mary was strong enough to testify against Singleton in court and determined to get justice. With her new prosthetics, Mary took the stand and testified about how Singleton brutally assaulted and tortured her. After testifying, she walked past him and he whispered, "I'll finish the job even if it takes the rest of my life." When Lauren Singleton took the stand, he told the court that he was innocent. He claimed that Mary was a, quote, $10 prostitute, and she was with 2 other hitchhikers, one named Larry. And that Larry was the one who attacked Mary. The trial ended a month later on March 29, 1979. He was convicted of kidnapping, rape, and attempted murder. Despite being convicted for committing horrendous crimes on a minor, he was only sentenced to 14 years in prison, which was the maximum amount he could be given due to California's laws at the time. To add to the injustice of his short sentence, he only served 8 years and was released on probation due to good behavior. What is more disturbing is that throughout his incarceration, multiple psychiatrists reported that Singleton was, quote, schizoid with a paranoid personality and capable of angry and destructive outbursts on those weaker than he. Even with the prison psychiatrist's many warnings, the probation board was sympathetic to him due to his ending his dependency on alcohol and good behavior. The state of California tried to place him in several towns after he was released, and all refused to house him. Singleton ended up living in a trailer on San Quentin's prison grounds until his probation was over in 1988. Singleton lived a fairly low-key life and moved to Florida, but his hatred for women and those weaker than himself remained. On February 1st, 1997, Lauren Singleton tried to kill himself in full view of his neighborhood by funneling carbon monoxide into his car and breathing it in. Police were called and he was sent to the hospital. Singleton's family had hoped that he would be held under the Baker Act since this wasn't his first attempt trying to kill himself. The Baker Act is a Florida law that allows authorities to involuntarily commit someone to a psychiatric hospital up to 72 hours if they display certain violent acts, suicidal thoughts and/or attempts, or mental illness. An administrator at the hospital's psychiatric center signed documents stating that Singleton posed a real and present threat of substantial harm to his well-being. However, Singleton was released on February 10th despite his family pleas that he needed to remain hospitalized. Unfortunately, that decision would lead to the death of a woman. Less than 2 weeks later, Singleton approached a sex worker named Roxanne Hayes who was trying to provide for her 3 children. Singleton asked her if she would go home with him, and that wasn't something that she would normally do. But as a fellow sex worker stated, you didn't think a 70-year-old would stab you, and so Roxanne went home with Singleton. It's not known what exactly happened between Singleton and Roxanne once they got to his home, but we do know that Singleton attacked Roxanne. He was caught in the act by Paul Hitson, who painted Singleton's house earlier that day and returned unannounced to check up on the job. As he checked his work, he saw Singleton standing over a nude woman, repeatedly beating and stabbing her through the window. During his attack, Singleton saw Paul watching him, but instead of stopping, he just stared at the house painter as he stabbed Roxanne Hayes over and over and over again. Paul was momentarily frozen in place as he watched this unbelievable act, but he quickly snapped out of his daze and ran away to call 911. By the time the police arrived, Singleton was standing over Roxanne's body with a boning knife, having stabbed her dozens of times. When he was arrested, he said, "I was framed last time, but this time I did it." Lauren Singleton was convicted of the murder of Roxanne Hayes, and when it came to the penalty phase, Mary Vincent came out of hiding and testified as the prosecution's only witness. Once again, she was face to face with her attacker, her worst nightmare. She was living proof that Singleton was dangerous, that he was cruel, and he had the capacity to do it again. When the prosecution asked Mary who was the man that attacked her, she used her prosthetic arm to point and identify Singleton. Lawrence Singleton was sentenced to death, but he died of cancer in 2001 before his execution date. Mary Vincent suffered PTSD for years and lived in fear that he would actually find her to finish what he started. But after his conviction for the murder of Roxanne Hayes, Mary Vincent decided not to live in fear. In 1998, she became a victim's advocate and testified in favor of a congressional bill called the No Second Chances for Murderers, Rapists, or Child Molesters Act. She has been on numerous talk shows and other programs telling her story.
I knew that if he were to do this to somebody else, they wouldn't survive it, and I don't know if I'm going to survive this. So I had to get up as quickly as I could to get help.
She became a mother of two and is known to be a tinkerer who uses spare parts from electronics to upgrade her prosthetics. Now at 58, she's a talented artist that focuses on accomplished women as action figures. Mary credits her children and art for helping her heal from her tragedy. Hi everyone, this is the second half of the Twin Files. As we were researching and writing the script, we came to the conclusion that Lawrence Singleton's attack on Mary couldn't have been the first attack because he had a murder kit in his van. Also, cutting off someone's arms is very extreme for a first-time attack. And remember, he was a merchant marine, so he could have developed and honed his murderous ways around the world without the crimes being tied to him. Do you think Mary Vincent was his first victim? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching the Twin Files. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. And remember to stay safe this Halloween.